pop, pop. What? Aha, okay, cool. And Rim World. Category Rim World. Update that. Yeah, if we do that, then we do that. Then I can come in here. And figure out how to fix. There we go. And then turn this back on. Oh. Oh, please don't die, camera, please. Okay. Sometimes when I move my webcam, it just dies. Is it not picking up the game audio? Now, why wouldn't it be picking up the game audio? No. Oh, fuck me. Let's turn off display capture real quick and figure out why the game audio isn't working. Oh, there we go. Hello, Two Langs. Just figuring some things out. Okay. I kind of want to start one where I haven't done so before. Faction error? Is that the name of the faction? I think that means error. Ice sheet. Tundra. Small hills. I've never done one in the tundra before. Begin with a simple ideologian and develop it over time. Create fluid. Man, what the fuck? Let's do animist. Or let's just do a randomize. It literally just selects a random square. Okay. We'll do animist. And then nature primacy. Right? What does that mean? Man is a stain on nature's perfection. I mean, it's an interesting theme, which kind of fits with the idea of like landing in a tundra, like a super hostile. Slaughtering animals is prohibited? Okay, well, they'll die instantaneously. So that can't be. If they're going to be in the tundra, they'll die instantaneously. I really should get started on Wormworld, maybe take some time off game jams for a bit. I personally believe it's like one of the best games. Just, I mean, you know me. You know this. Like, I can't proselytize this game enough. It's just, in my opinion, it's just like the best. Like, for the specific thing that I want from a game, if it's not like a competitive, because I just love competitive games. Like, I love fighting games and I love card games, right? Like, I love Magic. I can play Magic until I die, just because I think it's like the best turn-based strategy game ever made, and I haven't found any that's better. But otherwise, if it's not one of those types of games, then I want it to be like this, and I have yet to find anything that does as good. Like Total War games do a pretty good job, but not the same. They're not. It's just not quite the same. I don't know what it is. No, I think I do know what it is, but we can talk about that. This is going to be very, very low key. We'll go ideological collectivist. That seems way less brutal. Slavery is honorable? Drug use medical only. Interesting. Awoken View, I guess, is what the religion is named, which is just awesome. Awoken View. Ayaka livestock farmer. Old gunshot. No health conditions. She's very intellectual. She's very good with animals. Taming, training, and controlling. That could be useful. We can't have two people. Do we have anybody who can cook? She can cook. And she can do plants. She can do animals, and she's smart. Alright. Super immune. Interesting. Randomize. Social. Psychically deaf. She just isn't affected by psychic phenomena. Oh, that's actually pretty handy. Although I think I do want a male. And incapable of violent is like literally the worst. Incapable of caring and social, incapable of caring of social and intellectual. Bloodlust. Jesus fuck. And asexual. I mean, asexual is fine. I think I'm okay with this. Story writer. Was anybody good with guns? I don't remember seeing that. Well, we'll find out. The three of you awake. Okay, it's looking like the game audio is louder than me. I could be wrong, though. Okay. First things first. Before we even do anything else, we have to get some plans going. Ancient macro engine block. Ancient ruined tank. Interesting. What do we got? God, I love the music in this game. It's like I'm home. I'm probably going to end up mining a lot of this, so I probably don't... Oh, and it's marshy? Yeah, so we're definitely not going to build there. We'll probably end up building here, Although the one thing that really sucks is there's just like no trees. So that means we gotta make everything, like everything out of stone. Which is good and bad, but... Alright, let's get the zones. So one thing, we need to take care of that later actually. Architect zone, stockpile zone. Okay, so everything will be allowed here. And I also want this zone to be a roof zone. And then let's see what they do. Need warm clothes. Okay, so that's already going to be a huge problem. Let's see. Bio. She can't shoot at all, but she has bloodlust and she can't shoot at all. She will not shoot, right? Yeah. And Cox is really good at shooting. Okay, so Cox will equip the rifle. No, she'll equip the rifle. She'll equip the revolver. And we can get back to this. Oh, I want all that to be allowed too. Allow. And allow. What is the temperature? 1 degree. So it's super cold. Shit, I'm already out of room. I need to expand this zone. Okay, then the next thing we need to do is build some temporary walls so that we can close this building down. And some beds. Set the owner as Pilar. Set the owner as Smooth. Set the owner as Cox. If you're there, Two Links, do you remember in Perishable, which was basically my attempt at a cover song of RimWorld? And you did a great job with it. The failure was mostly on my part, I think. But I don't think the game was a failure. I just think that it was... I don't know how to describe it, but how I was really hard, like I was really adamant about having the names and the, like, getting the traits of characters randomized and stuff. That was because of all of this, like the, I didn't want to go this hard because RimWorld, you could write an entire novel with, right? Like through play. You could make an entire novel's worth of narrative through a play session, of a play session in RimWorld. Whereas I wanted Perishable to be almost like you could make a collection of short stories or one singular short story, right? And for those who don't know, Two Links and I, we made a game called The Perishable, which is a game about, it's a turn-based strategy game where you 3 randomized characters who are given names are sent down into this crater to collect as much of this particularly precious material as they can. And however, this precious material is also turning the entire crater and all the inhabitants into these kind of like Lovecraftian type monsters. And what I wanted from it was to... I think I'm going to turn the game down just a little bit. it's looking like my audio is much, much lower. But what I really wanted from that game was, and the reason why I was going hard on the things like their name and their job and stuff like that was because I felt it was really important to identify. There's something that Pinckney talked about, which is that when you're writing a character, you want to give them a couple of traits, a couple of key things that are identifiable, and they come in the form of verbs and occupations, right? Or like adjective, adverb, occupation. So like a quick-minded baker, or a thoughtful, although cruel, accountant. And by having the thoughtful though cruel accountant tells you more than I think a lot of any other thing that you could do with characters can tell you. I mean, it's just an incredibly descriptive form of what a person does, because people usually become accountants because they want to become accountants. People usually become firefighters because they want to become firefighters, or at least they have reasons for it. And we can identify, we as the audience can see what the reason is. We can, when we see a intolerant firefighter, we know everything about this guy. We know who he votes for or who she votes for in presidential elections, just based on intolerant firefighter. And so that was why it was important for me to have these occupations and these names, because when you name things, you give them power, right? And I don't mean that in like a kind of a religious sense. I mean it in more of just kind of an artistic sense, where named things mean more than unnamed things, right? It's the same thing with, like, if you find a lizard on the beach, don't name it, because then you're going to put it in a cup and take it home, and it shouldn't be put in a cup and taken home because it's a lizard. That's why you can't name it. Farm animals, right? They say don't name the farm animals. That's a bad idea. And so that was what I had hoped for so desperately to achieve in Perishable, that got close, but it wasn't quite there. And I think part of the reason was because there was just too much damn reading. Just too much reading, which is just highly unfortunate. If I could have figured out how to make less reading in that. One second, I got a text from my wife. I'm streaming it now. So all right, sorry, I'm a slow texter. But yeah, so that was just what I wanted so desperately. I thought about it all the time, especially while we were making the game, like just desperately, like thinking, how can I make this? How can we put together this game so that it has these character elements? Okay, is it warm inside? Well, unroofed. It's not unroofed. Hello, Dream Cartographer. Don't clean the dirt. We don't have time for that. We need to get a fire. What are we talking about? Well, what we're talking about is, for now, what we're talking about is apophenia, or apophenia. It's the term that I can't remember if you were there, Dream Cartographer, during the Tynan Sylvester. Jeez, I'm struggling to talk tonight. Tynan Sylvester GDC talks, where he talks about kind of deriving the sum of a story from its individual parts, right? The individual details are what flesh out a story, and linking it between RimWorld and the game that I tried to make with Two Links. I mean, I didn't do any of the coding. Two Links did all the coding. I just did writing. but because I described it a little bit ago as like the Perishable, that's the name of the game, was kind of like my cover of RimWorld, like a cover song, because in the Perishable, you can write like a short story with a playthrough of that game. In RimWorld, you can write like a novel in a playthrough, which is fine. I mean, that was exactly what I wanted. I just wanted a replayable story generator, and it didn't quite reach it. It didn't quite get to where I wanted it to get to, and I was thinking about that. You were not there? Okay, yeah. So the GDC talks are just super enlightening, where Tynan Sylvester talks a lot about how he developed his game, and at that stream, yeah, and the core concepts that were going into the development of the game, right? Which is that that his game, I mean, as you can clearly see, it's not a very beautiful game, right? And this was by design. The game wasn't meant to be beautiful. The game wasn't meant to have high fidelity. It was meant to convey maximum information, right? So you probably don't know what Cox is doing right now, but this is the universal game symbol for somebody relaxing in the world, right? So when a character is laying down like this, that means they are cloud watching. So when you click on them, down here, it'll say cloud watching. And it's interesting because she's laying on a rock. And so it's almost like, because these are all stones. And I think part of the reason why that's interesting, just in general, this is kind of an aside, but part of the reason I think that's interesting is because you can kind of just imagine what that looks like. You know, like your imagination kind of picks up where the game's graphics leave off. Because it's not that the game is horrifically ugly, it's just that it's not particularly beautiful. But it's very intentionally trying to convey maximum imagination food versus having the engine do the heavy lifting for your imagination, right? So it's part of the reason why I think a lot of modern films actually struggle to have an impact. Like, go watch an old film where they crash a car. Watching an old film where they crash cars is very interesting. Hello, Philosophitis. Yeah, Space for Projection is yeah, it's like exactly what I'm talking about. Where like, because this is what a novel does, right? And for any, if there's anybody new here, I write novels. I write short fiction and novels, and I'm trying to write video games now. I'm trying to break into this world. I'm a classically trained fiction writer. So what they teach you when you're writing novels and when you're writing fiction is that you don't need to be particularly hyper realistic with your descriptions. As a matter of fact, that actually is usually a detriment to the writing. It usually ruins the writing, because a novel is a game, just like a game is a game. You're playing a game with your audience in which you provide them enough details that then they get to play with their imagination in your world, right? That's why whenever you show a monster in a horror movie, the horror is instantaneously gone, because now we know what it looks like, versus our imagination, which is so much better than anything else. It's just stronger. It's just better, you know? It's also why a lot of the time professional writers will say that you should work on getting your olfactory descriptions down, because your nasal senses are really strong. And so if you're going to describe something, describing how it smells is going to be much stronger than describing it visually. We interpret the world a lot through our nose, despite what we think, right? And engaging that sense. I mean, imagine like you smell like, I don't know, the classic example for me is ramen. If I smell like chicken ramen noodles, I instantly am a child again. I just remember it. I remember my mom because my mom made it for me instead of chicken noodle soup. And so I'm just like a child. I can see the kitchen with like the yellow light beneath the stovetop. I can see the, where the kitchen, or how the sink was placed behind the countertop and the old wooden table that we had. Like, I can even remember, like, the table smells waxy, right? I can remember that. And those descriptions are so strong. And so what RimWorld is doing is exactly that, right? It just gives you just enough for you to think about what it is, right? And weirdly, by offloading the fidelity of the graphics to the player's mind, they actually create something stronger, in my opinion. But yeah, so that's the first part of this stream. The second part, I guess it depends on how many people show up, but I kind of wanted to talk about our game jam, the kind of a post-mortem on our game jam. Oh shit, I forgot to build a fire. Dark torch. Interesting. Let's see, is it no power production? I can't remember where fire is. Structure? No. Temperature, that's right. Temperature. So let's put a campfire in there, because they're all about to go to sleep. And we have very limited wood, so I need to be quite careful. I'm Greek. I read about games in Greek, and I discovered your YouTube while researching immersive sims. Oh, really? Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for showing up. That's so cool. I wonder, how did that video go for you? I'm curious about that, because it's one of the videos I've gotten the least amount of feedback on. And I remember that being a more casual conversation than I think I probably should have had it be. But yeah, I was curious, because immersive sims are something that are super interesting to me, but I don't know if I have the vocabulary to talk about immersive sims yet. Because they're brilliant. They're so amazing, because they do a lot of the things that even RimWorld does, right? Where they offload the narrative to the player's imagination. And the player creating their own story is the narrative. At least a part of the narrative, and why it can become a more unique, customizable narrative for the player, right? And I can't remember if I conveyed that well, but I'm glad to hear that was the origin of that. Go to sleep. You have work in the morning. We're gonna just deconstruct this and this. Do they both just not sleep? Is that what happens? Okay. They do sleep. Okay, good. I love that the music just kind of fades away at night. And then it comes right back up in the morning. The music in this game is brilliant. It's so relaxing. I thought there was actually going to be snow here. I'm kind of a little saddened by that. Okay, day 2. How do we expand? And how do we get food? Do we have any? Oh my god, there's so much dark green up there. Rich soil. I guess you can't grow in a marsh. Fair enough. Well, maybe we'll just deconstruct all this and move that over there today. Because I have found that it's often not a good idea to concrete. Interesting. I've often found that it's not particularly good to be away, like quite far from your food source. Yeah. So I don't know if the vocabulary really even exists, but I took a lot from your perspective on narrative in general. I kind of geeked out a bit, to be honest, because I felt that you were looking for the same thing I was and am still, which is how games specifically tell their stories. It's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking to almost establish what a universal grammar is for game narrative. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because we have it in normal fiction. Now, some people disagree. Some people think that you can do whatever you want in fiction in storytelling and it'll be fine. And I disagree. I think that there's a structure to fiction. There's a right structure, and there's a structure that you can try, or like a structureless fiction. And when you have structureless fiction, you just have to know why you're being structureless, right? But if you want to get into the game, if you really want to write fiction for a living, you should at least know what the structure is. At least know it. And the structure has been long established for forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. It's write in scene structure, write in narrative arc, and tell the story through your objects, not necessarily just through exposition in your characters. Now, obviously, this has evolved and changed over time, right? But the storytelling medium is ancient versus games, which are getting there, but they're not old enough yet. And so while we do have some universal ideologies that take place in game development, right? Like perspective. First-person perspectives largely play like each other. Third-person perspective games largely play like each other, right? They share a universal grammar between them in their text, their ludic text. But how else can we do it? Especially because I think that, well, like I said, I've said this numerous times, but I think that there is somewhat of a, if it's not already happening now, there is somewhat of a revolution coming in the development of video games, because as the games become easier or more simplified to develop, right, and as the population has increased its awareness and ability to create games, the same thing happened with film, the same thing happened with novels. There is a boom in individual creators making things, right? So how can we equip the people in this medium to tell stories ludically? And so, yeah, I'm glad to have found a kindred spirit in that regard. All right, team. We're going to move over to this concrete patch today. I wonder if I can deconstruct. What the fuck? Ancient centipede shell. That's highly unfortunate. Ancient mech drop beacon? I hope these things aren't alive. We're not going in there. I've learned my lesson about that. Oh, there's packaged survival meals over there. Well, hot dog. Okay. Well, this is our farming area. The fuck is that? Pipeline section. Oh, caribou. Procedural rhetorics. Can you expound on? Can you go a little deeper into that? I think I understand what you mean, but I'm curious as to what you're intending to say with this. To be clear. Okay, we're gonna deconstruct all of these walls. This will take probably too much time, but I don't have that many materials. Okay, everybody socialize, that's fine. Okay, she's going to get the things. She's deconstructing the walls. Okay, now we are going to delete this zone, and we're going to move it. What is this? Rough granite. Okay. Let's put it zone. Stockpile zone. Put it here. And we'll start moving all this shit. Okay, and then let's make the growing zone. The grow zone. I can't believe we got such a good grow zone up here in the tundra. Although, we'll see. Because the temperature is not particularly good. This is probably too much for this many people, so I think I'll just end it there. Structure. No, not a door. Wooden wall. can expand on this. Of course, I didn't make a door because I'm a fool. Let's make a door. Let's make it there. I guess RimWorld is kind of a perfect example. Haven't played any of it though. Put simply, a representation of reality or some aspect of it, a narrative that is expressed through procedures rather than described through language. Yeah, okay. Yeah, right. This is actually, I think, we talked about this in a recent stream with the concept of the gameplay loop in Factorio, right? Because we were going over games without text, because that was the most recent game jam that I put on, was the restriction was no text, right? It has to be a narrative game with no text, which is like kind of a tall order. But the idea behind it that I had, and I didn't even realize this when I did it, but I guess I'm tooting my own horn when I don't deserve it. But the idea that ended up coming out is that the way in which you can tell a story with no text is through your gameplay loop, right? You can set your gameplay loop up so that it is very, so that it tells your story, right? The gameplay loop of RimWorld is managing these people, through these procedurally, as you said, these procedurally generated scenarios, right? And with the very sparse information that they give you about these characters, I mean, it's not that sparse, but I guess in terms of like, I'm not entirely sure how to put it, so I'm just going to skip past that part. With the limited information that you understand about these characters, however, the very powerful details that are provided to you about these characters, you can have an entire narrative born out of the gameplay loop. Same with Factorio. The gameplay loop of Factorio tells its story. The game has no narrative text. It's just make things that make other things until you've made all the things. But there's an environmental disaster story. There's an environmental disaster story. There's a man versus nature story. There's all kinds of stories packed into this gameplay loop of making things, realizing that the things you made screwed you over in the end, right? Setting up your factory screwed over the way you needed to make the factory in the future. You just didn't realize it. Yeah, there's a de facto narrative. Right, exactly. There's always a narrative. There's always a narrative in a game, with the exception of maybe Nim. Because I have gone for months trying to think about, after Two Legs brought it up, I still can't think of what the narrative of Nim is. But I would argue for at least the vast majority of any type of ludic experience, there is a narrative, right? Football, basketball, chess, card games, anything that even seems like it doesn't have a narrative, there's a narrative. It's just built in a different way, it's constructed in a different way. And I think that the gameplay loop is the powerful way in which it is constructed, right? It is probably the most powerful way. Cool, we've got a bunch of plants planted. How is it already night? Okay, now we need to make beds again. Animal sleeping spot there. And how's the temperature in here? Well, it's outdoors, so it's freezing. Is all that a form of emergent storytelling? Yes. Emergent storytelling is kind of the thing. The emergent storytelling is the operative term, I think, for game narrative. Because the only way you can have emergent storytelling is when things can go not according to plan. In a novel, everything goes according to plan. It's the author's job to make it look like it doesn't, right? But everything goes according to the author's plan. The author has a plan to write their book. They write it, and all the things happen in the order in which the author produced that, right? Same in a film. That's the kind of the great struggle of a linear narrative. Now, games completely shirk off this problem because they don't necessarily have to have a linear narrative. And so the question is how do we distill the learnings from fiction writing and film and screenwriting and playwriting and all of that? How do we distill the emotional impact of those forms into a game? Right? Because the problem that I've seen through most games is that their narratives are sophomoric. It's getting better, I think. Year on year, I think the narratives are becoming more mature, they're becoming more interesting. But we still have this issue where games either try to imitate film when they're doing their narrative, or they do these weird sophomoric things because maybe the medium is still too insecure. But the emergent narrative is the thing, that is the unique thing about game narrative, because no other medium can do it. I mean, maybe you could argue painting, because when somebody comes to a painting and they look at it and they're interpreting it, maybe they, there's a narrative which emerges from the abstract image. But even still, I don't think that painting even sniffs game development, because in a game you can literally program it to be random, right? Like there's nothing else you can do with that. You couldn't program a film to be random. It just wouldn't work, And the great power of the human mind, and the thing that all artists should be abusing the fuck out of, is that people try to make sense of things which don't make sense. They try to see patterns in things that are not patterned, right? You will make connections which aren't there. And that's exactly what Tynan talks about in his GDC talk. Is he says, abuse it. Abuse the fact that people will make connections that are not there. What do you mean by sophomoric? What I mean by sophomoric is that it's clear to me that it's not written by a pro. When I play a game narrative, oftentimes I'm like, yeah, this isn't very good, right? Versus when you sit down to watch, like I just watched Jurassic Park last night, and I sat down to watch that film and I was like, oh my God, this movie. And like Jurassic Park isn't the best film ever made, but it's written by a pro. It just, the story just hums. It's like from the beginning to the end, every beat is hit, right? You got the guy who doesn't like kids, who grows to love kids over the course of the narrative. You got this woman she's brilliant and she saves the day, and she's a scientist, but she becomes an action hero. You've got all these reversals and interesting, and it all goes according to the core thesis of the Ian Malcolm character, which says everything is chaos. Like once something becomes chaotic, all of these characters will change instantaneously and become things that they're not, right? Like it's amazing. It's an amazing film. The story is so good. And I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that from a pre-rendered from an authored narrative in a game, where just every single thing is contributing to the overall experience of the narrative. But it could be there. It could. The times in which I experience the best narratives are when games are trying to do emergent narrative, because as I've said many times, and this goes for films and books, that your own imagination is often better than what the writer is going to do anyway. So yeah, like I guess the idea that I'm trying to get across is like, I prefer the emergent narratives to most novels that I've read. Like the story, I've told this before, but like I used to play Elite Dangerous with my father, right? The space sim. And, it's a very open-ended game. There's no pre-authored narrative. It's just kind of like you're dropped into a world and there's all these factions and there's all this, political strife and there's weird, wars going on. There's all kinds of shit happening. And we're dropped into the space and we're just making our money, and then we realize that we want to immigrate to a new part of space. And so we didn't have money, and we didn't really know what the hell we were doing. So we just jumped in our ships and started trying to figure out how to navigate the Milky Way to get to the other faction's space. Right? We had to fly from sun to sun, from star system to star system, trying to get. And the narrative that came out of that was unbelievable. I mean, it was like this epic father-son novel about, like an epic father-son road novel set in a sci-fi universe. Now, if somebody, like, if all of a sudden I saw a trailer and it was like, bang, we've made coming this summer, there's an epic sci-fi road novel about a father and a son who are trying to immigrate out of Federation space into the capital. I'd be like, what the fuck? I've got to see that movie. But it can only happen in the emergent space of a game, in the emergent narrative space of a game, because games are uninhibited. Like the computer that runs the game world gives no shits about convention, right? It gives no shits about what might sell in Hollywood. And it just allows the player to invent their narrative. Does that make sense? And so it's this weird tightrope where I'm walking, where I'm trying to tell everybody, you've got to write in scene structure, you've got to write with objective correlative. But at the same time, I'm also arguing that games are doing it, the right games are doing it better because they understand that the strength of the medium is in its emergent nature, right? And so I don't know, it's just such a hard thing to talk about. These types of narratives kind of demand a protagonist mirror, though, which means a protagonist who conducts your own reflection, but almost has none of his. I'm not saying this is necessarily a problem, but it is a trade-off. Oh, are you saying like the sci-fi road novel with my father kind of thing? Because yeah, I mean the protagonist is famously the mirror character, right? Like a lot of the times people, like, you can't remember any of Harry Potter's lines. Like, what the hell does Harry Potter say in any of those movies? But you can remember other characters. You can remember what Hermione says. You can remember what Ron says, right? Because Harry Potter is meant to be a blank slate character. He's not particularly memorable. He's meant to be a stand-in for the audience, right? Now, not all fiction is going to be this way, but that type of fiction totally is that way. Like The Matrix. And I'm not saying that these are bad movies, by the way. I think they're really good movies, but that's the function of the protagonist in that type of fiction, is to serve as a blank slate. Whereas games, there's no need for a blank slate because you just are the character. In the types of games we're talking about. This game kind of takes emergent narrative and does a different thing with it, though, right? Where these characters aren't me. I'm kind of just watching their story unfold and lightly nudging them in directions to see what happens. Sleep in your bed. She's going to be pissed in the morning. I bet one of them's going to get sick because they couldn't close the door in time. Yeah, I know we need defenses. 10% base chance. Okay. Oh, forgot to do this. Let's see. I want Cox to be the only one who hunts. She has an aptitude for it? Fuck. Okay. We're actually making a little game with a friend right now, and I mean really, really, really small. What game are you making? And who's we? Sorry I'm late to class. Was too busy looking at infinite turn combos for EDH. Yeah, I've been there. Well, actually, no, I actually haven't. I've been there in other Magic formats, but not EDH. It's all good. No worries to be late. It's looking like we're probably not... Whoa. Jesus, this got suddenly super violent. please, please don't piss them off. Don't make the herd mad. God, you're so terrible. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I've got to make a butchery. But I got to make it in such a way that it's not going to... Work speed penalty, bad temperature. Yeah. We know we're in the tundra. God, has everybody done hauling this shit yet? Obika plus Isochron Scepter plus any card that says take a turn to lose the game on end step. I see. Oh, it's actually kind of interesting. I never noticed that before. In my headphones, I can hear, like, the gunshots become distant. It's actually really kind of hypnotic in a way. Interesting. Oh my god, Smooth. What are you doing? You can't just leave the damn body. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make another zone. It's going to be a stockpile zone. Except for this one's going to be a little different. We're going to change it to only have foods. Wait, are corpses raw resources? No. Items, weapons, apparel, buildings. Animal corpses. Okay, now prioritize hauling the caribou. Slowly crawling towards no one. Ancient danger. As Smooth draws near the ancient wall, a sense of foreboding overcomes her. She isn't sure why, but she feels that this dusty structure may contain great danger. Yeah, I mean, don't you worry, we're not going in there. I've learned my lesson. Slowly crawling towards no one will play with me anymore. How's Rimworld teacher treating you? Yeah, it's... I would just like for in-person magic to come back. I've gotten to the point, I've gotten to the age now where I'm like, you know what? I don't even care. I would be happy to just go sit in the store and play Magic with people. I don't even fucking care. Because for a while I was like, no, I don't want to do that. It's so convenient to stay at home. But now I'm like, yeah, I don't care what people think of me. I'd be happy to just go sit for a couple of hours and play Magic with somebody in person. Especially because of infinite combos. It's a little story about a lady who experiences an unstoppable need to consume paint and then is battered by police. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Yeah, totally. Sounds like a very super interesting premise. That was not what I thought you were going to say. You could have given me like a lot of guesses. I never would have thought. Building wooden door. Thank you. Okay, can somebody please prioritize like doing the things we need to do? Why is it 11 degrees outside? Let's turn off the automatic refuel on that. Yeah, socialize by the fire. You better not go and eat that caribou. Oh, Jake, I forgot to tell you. There's probably going to be... Flesh and Blood is actually going to come to Card Market soon. Finally. The big Euro card market. Like finally. Because you seriously cannot find singles. Yeah. You are bescused. What are you working on at the moment other than the channel, and where can I read anything of something of yours? So, great questions. So I'm working on a new novel. My first novel is available for free on Wattpad if you want to go read that there. I would appreciate it if you'd read it on Wattpad, but if you just like are vehemently against it, just shoot me an email at that, and I'll just email you a copy of the book, my first novel. But the second one is only being published to Wattpad for right now. But they're both free. You're welcome to go read them. You can probably find some of my fiction if you search Dylan Davis fiction. Yeah. So like some of my published stuff in like Hobart Magazine or in, well, you probably can't find some of the others. Maybe Whiskey Paper. Probably not Driftwood Press though. But you can find a couple of my short stories. Those are more literary, kind of before I had the weird like shifted perspective where I decided I wanted to do genre writing. But yeah, on Wattpad, both my cyberpunk novel is available and the new fantasy novel, which I'm describing as like the literary version of Dark Souls. It's what I'm attempting to do with it. Is like, I think the log line is like a perfect run of Dark Souls. That's what reading the novel is supposed to feel like. So yeah, you can read that. And if you want to play the game fiction, that's all on my itch. So dylandavis.itch.io. That's all free. That's all available. I would highly recommend playing the ones in which Two Links was the developer and not me, because he's a much better developer than I am. So that's my recommendation. Do that. Don't play. I mean, you can if you want. You can play the disc jockey if you want, but it's a pretty buggy fucking mess. So I don't like super recommend it. It's not me in my best form. It's great writing though. I mean, at least I think it is. And it's very raw. It's like, holy shit, I have no idea what I'm doing. And in a sense, I think that's actually kind of fun. I think it's fun to read the first novels of really good writers. Not saying I'm like a super, super good writer, but like reading like Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor. That book is incredible, partially because it's so goddamn messy. And you can just see that this like seething, brilliant woman is like just putting pen to paper, and just like you can just see that she's going to be a legendary writer. But the book is like, I mean, in a way, I think it is kind of a perfect book. But it opened my eye to the idea. She was actually the inspiration for where I ended up taking Salt Lake City, my first novel, my first like adult novel. Not adult as in porn, but you know what I mean. First novel I had written as an adult. She was a huge inspiration for that because it's just so messy. I was like, oh, you can do that? You can just like be super messy. You can just like just go nuts and be an emotional young person in a book. That's like totally okay. Sounds good. So I was like, fuck it. I just went crazy. And that was the best. I loved that. But yeah, so I would prefer to read it on Wattpad because I'm kind of trying to figure out how that platform works. I'm trying to figure out how to make that like a way that I can actually springboard. But yeah, other than that, it's just kind of like doing this, occasionally getting a wild hair at my ass and trying to make a little game, and then I failed, and then I close it, and then I go, okay, I'll see you in a couple months. And then I come back in a couple months when I'm not mad at it anymore. And yeah, just looking to collaborate with anybody who wants to make a game and applying for jobs. But a lot of my time right now is actually taken up. I moved to Germany in July, so I have to take a what's called the Deutsch Integrations course, which is just like a German language course, super intensive. It's 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 4 hours a day. It's like, oh my God, it's so intense. It's so long. Aber mein Deutsch ist super, super gut jetzt. Jetzt super gut. Let's see. Seconded, bro, I'm stoked about this new novel. Shut the fuck up, you're a really good writer. Yeah, I would say that I'm a good writer. That's fine. But I would not say that I'm as good as Flannery O'Connor. Just go read Wise Blood. It's insane. I don't believe in God, and I was scared of God when I was reading that book because that book is so jam-packed with like the ancient, like First Testament fear of God. It's crazy. I was terrified. The little failures are better than not trying. Totally. Yeah. I mean, Brandon Sanderson, I don't know if anybody's familiar with his work, but he's a pretty big, like fantasy writer. Like actually huge. He's like a gigantic fantasy writer. He has a YouTube series on YouTube where he taught a couple of classes in creative writing. And one of the things that really stuck out to me in that class was that he said, get ready for like 10 years of nothing. Just get ready for that. It's going to be horrible. Like if you can do it for 10 years, you'll probably make it. If you can't do it for 10 years, you're probably not going to make it. And I mean with like nothing. You know what I mean? Like nothing. And there obviously there's no guarantee that you're going to make it, but like your odds of making it drastically improve after you've done it seriously for 10 years. And I'm on like my 10-year anniversary. So I'm getting there. It's just a matter of like, you keep going, and hopefully eventually you hit something and bang, you know. Some people, I mean, and even if it doesn't happen, it's no big deal. I still have until I'm like dead. so we're good. What was her name? Mia Olker, I think. Maya Olker. Man, she's brilliant. She's amazing. A great writer. And she didn't hit it until she was like 42. And it was just like, bang, 42. Here's this huge book. It's awesome. See, I'm going to check everything out, especially Disc Jockey. It's been great discovering your channels. Fingers crossed. You don't need to discover Disc Jockey. It's super messy. The Poyura is a much, much more cohesive narrative, but you'll laugh at Disc Jockey. Let's see. Raise his hand. Currently reading Stormlight. Yeah, he's good, man. Brandon Sanderson's a fucking awesome writer. It's good for him. He likes magic too. It's like cool. The whole series of classes is nuts. The fact that it's free is insane. It's like the best. Like I would say that it's on par with my MFA, and it's like a 10-hour series of videos on YouTube for free. Like the good thing about the MFA was that you got 3 years to write on like paid to write. But in terms of the actual educational quality, in terms of like the things that you learn about fiction writing, I would put it up there. It's about as good as my MFA was. Now you don't come away with a mentor. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I'm working with Pinckney on a book. I don't know if you knew that, Philosophitis, but my old professor, he and I are collaborating on a nonfiction book. I'm supposed to be writing my novel again. Well, you'll get there. It's fine. I took like a 6-month break after 7 month. I took like a 7-month break after I finished Salt Lake City. I was like, done. Can't do it. I was looking at blank pages just like, fuck you. Let's see. You're all writers in here? Yeah, I think a lot of people who ended up kind of coming to the Discord, because like we have this weird thing going around where it's like you either find this through Twitch, you find it through Itch, or you find it through YouTube. And a lot of the people find it through Itch, and they're all game story makers, right? Like Corvidash, Dream Cartographer, they've submitted to multiple jams. Sasquatch would, if he could, I know it, but he sent me writing that he's done. And what's it about? I'm assuming that's in reference to the nonfiction book. So Pinckney went to a school in Pennsylvania called the Hill School. It's like a private charter school. Super old, like 1800s. It's old as fuck. And they have an anniversary coming up, and they asked him to write a nonfiction novel about the history of the school through like a couple different time periods. And so Pinckney, as kind of a graduation gift, came to me and he was like, so I got this thing coming up, and you're the only one I know who's like willing to learn how to do shit, so will you work on it with me? And I was like, you got it, man. So yeah, it's like, I don't want to call it a puff piece, because Pinckney doesn't write that kind of thing, but it's like it's a commission novel. It's not like it's not John Krakauer. It's a commissioned, like, a company is paying us to write a book. So pretty cool. Like, I'm totally down. I will write anything for money. I'm definitely not a reason. I'm assuming you mean seasoned. I'm not a seasoned writer, but I like putting short stories down. Plus, this channel teaches stuff that I find useful and interesting. Oh yeah, seasoned. There it is. Yeah, I mean, I do what I can, right? I have to start up again soon because I kind of paid to pitch said novel in person to an actual agent early next month. Oh, okay, cool. If they want, just a little bit of advice. If they ask for any more money, get the fuck out of there, because they're shady. I'm not entirely opposed to paying to pitch to an agent, because I can see why that might, I could see a scenario in which that is the case. Do not pay any more money if they ask for more money. Especially if they say, we will publish your book if you pay us. Because that's not how publishing works. That's not how the publishing world works. An agent doesn't ask for money to publish your book. Joe, just so you know, like, that's not a thing, right? So just giving you a heads up, because it could be totally legit, it could be totally fine, but whenever I hear anything about publishers asking you to pay for the editing or pay for publishers don't do that. That's the point of a publisher. The point of a publisher is to do that shit for you. They have in-house editors, right? They have in-house cover designers, right? That's the point of that. That's why you want a publisher. And they have in-house marketing, right? Now, smaller publishers can be kind of hard. That's why they might have, offload some of the marketing to you, but they don't make you pay for the marketing. They just say, like, develop a Twitter presence, like that kind of thing. Let's see. I can't develop her shit, but I would be more than happy to collaborate on the game story side. I have a lot of background in TTRPGs. Yeah, see, like, this is the kind of thing I wish that there was some kind of platform where you could build that stuff, right? Like yeah, you could get Divinity Original Sin 2 and you could, like, make you could make an RPG, like a TTRPG, that you could then send to your buddies. But I wish there was a more professionalized version of it, where it was like, it's almost like playing The Sims, but you're building a TTRPG, and then you can publish it and people can buy it. It'd be awesome. It'd be so dope. With, like, online game pieces. And it would save the shit that you write into it, right? Very cool. Thank you. It's just for feedback and stuff. It's okay. All right, cool. Never mind. Okay, then we're good. Sorry, I just heard paid for an agent, and I was like, no. Oh God, no. That's not what that means. Unfortunately, the platform is for me, or the DM itself. You can sell that stuff on DriveThruRPG, but it's just pen and paper. Yeah, I'm more mean with the digital side. Hey, Pupsy. Your mother must not be home. Yeah, thank you. What? Say hello to the stream. Okay. Dog. Plus, I am better at telling a story than actually writing it. Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like how cool would it be if, like, you could set up a digital TTRPG place where people could, like, open the game, log in, and they could pay. Like, maybe they could pay for a session with you. And then, what are you doing, dude? Dude, what are you doing? They could pay for a session with you, and then they could be, run through a one shot or like a longer one. And they just log in and their game pieces are there, right? And it's all online. A little higher fidelity. Oh, being a paid DM while using Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds is definitely... I figured it was. I figured there was such thing as paid DMing because it's such a, like a unique skill set. Pup does demand attention. But I guess I mean, like, and I know that there's products like these. I just wish that there was one that was like, oh yeah, that's the one. You know what I mean? Like you want to play a sports game. It's like, oh, well, then play FIFA because that's the sports game. It's the, or like, oh, you want to play a card game? Well, play Magic. Roll20 is sort of like that. Okay. I don't really play it. Cause I don't think I'm particularly good at improv. I don't think I ever have been. My mind is not fast. It's one of the things I know about myself. I'm not a fast thinker. I'm a very, very slow thinker. You should have seen me when I worked at a restaurant. When I was a busboy. Yeah, I was the worst busboy to have ever lived. Yeah, having a centralized system does exist. I can't think of any other platforms besides Roll20. Centralized system does exist. Fate, Cypher, Powered by Apocalypse, etc. But when people think TTRPG, 9 times out of 10, they think D&D. Yeah. You get good at it. Yeah, I'm sure it's something that you practice at and get better at. Fantasy Grounds is big. Yeah, that's the one that Jake's told me about a lot. That's actually, that's something that's kind of interesting. With there's that new VR one too, where you can you all get into VR and you can see I can't remember what it's called, like Umbio or Umbrio. I can't remember, but it's pretty cool because you can see kind of into the fantasy world, and you're like sitting there with your friends looking down at it, and you move your piece physically, with your hand, with your VR hand. My dog loves to choke himself on shit when he's trying to sleep. It's just ridiculous. He has his neck shoved into my arm. Yeah, what the hell are we talking about? Oh, okay. So, I guess before I go, I wanted to... Who all here submitted to the jam? Dream Cartographer did. Did Corvid, did you? Two Links did, but I think he went somewhere. I wanted to get some feedback on how I'm ironing out a bug. Cool. You did not? Okay. I'm just curious about what people thought of that jam. Yeah, I figured. Holidays caught up to me too. I'd fucking stopped streaming the week before Christmas or something. I didn't think that it was good because normally I'm like, whatever. I don't really give a shit about Christmas, but German Christmas was so new to me that I was like, I gotta experience all of it. I gotta see all of it. Getting drunk with Germans at noon. I loved it except for the fact that the holidays killed productivity. That's kind of what I thought. I think the big thing I learned is that just because it's December 26th doesn't mean that the holidays are over. Imagine if that jam started today. Or yesterday, right? People get another week or so to think about it. They get another week or so to think about what they're going to do for the jam. Definitely want to participate in future jam. Totally, you should, absolutely. One of the things I really want to do and I want to work on, but I don't know how to get it, is how to make team building actually happen. Because we have a team building section of our Discord, which, by the way, Philosophitas, if you haven't joined our Discord, you probably should. I think there's a link somewhere beneath the video. So if you haven't joined it, I can't remember. I can't remember all the names. Especially when sometimes people's names on Twitch and Discord are different. But if you have not joined our Discord, I highly recommend you do so. Thank you, Jake. I appreciate that. But I really would like the team thing to become more possible. And I get why it's not, because I've now tried to collaborate with a bunch of different people, and I would say the majority don't pan out. It's just somebody just doesn't show up, and then it never happens. Hi, baby. Oh no, I didn't. It's okay. It's only 20 minutes late. Yeah, I had one job. I forgot to feed the dog. because I'm an idiot. What was I going to say? I really like the restriction. The reason I didn't submit is because I couldn't develop a product in time because Christmas. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that this was just did. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm glad you did. Welcome. Yeah, it was a mistake. I shouldn't have done it on the 26th. I for some reason thought that everybody would be like at home, kind of hanging out. And then I remembered like December 26th was as busy as the 25th. And I was like, why did I do this? Why did I set this jam now? So yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, in the future, it will be better. Especially now that we're getting Pinkney back. Hopefully frequently. Hopefully he's a busy guy, so at any moment he could like disappear for 3 weeks. But if we get him back and we can keep him on the jam streams at least, oh, fucking hell, it'd be awesome. I said this before, but the Anagnoresis theme was the main reason I eventually ended up making something. I had plans for other jams, but I just kind of tried to make it part of those, sort of. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, the Anagnoresis is like, you got to try it, right? Especially if it's already something that you kind of tend to like to do in fiction, like what Mr. C said. Anyway, I'm probably in trouble because I didn't feed the dog, so I'm going to end the stream now, and I'll talk to you guys next week when we're going to go over the Game Jam games with Pinkney. Collaboration is hard because suddenly you're at a whims of 2 or more schedules. Short time periods are like a trial by fire. Yeah, it's really tough, especially with people you don't know. But like, I just don't know how else I can help the non-developers participate in jams. Like maybe we could have like some writers like write a short little story that they can make jams. I don't know, something. I just don't know what it is. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Anyway, I'm going to head out. So I will talk to you guys later.